beyond space. Because this cause created time. Stephen Hawking, what does he say? He says almost everyone now believes that the universe and time itself had a beginning. So even scientists and atheists believe that the universe had a beginning. So if this cause caused time, it must be timeless. Also, it must be immaterial, beyond matter, beyond creation, because it caused creation. But most importantly for this argument, this entity or this cause must have a personality. It must have a personal will. Because how else can a timeless entity bring about the temporal effect called the universe? To suggest that this cause was just mechanical, or this cause was just a pre-existing set of conditions, that would mean the cause could not live without the effect. But we know the effect, which is the universe in this case, is limited. Hence, this being must have a personality, a will, because it had choice to bring the universe into existence or not. And this is supported by modern astrophysical evidence. Everyone's heard about the Big Bang. Who's heard of the Big Bang? Most of you. There's a general consensus here. Now the Big Bang, according to the physicists generally, they say that physical time and space were created, matter and energy were also created. However, what does Cambridge astronomer Fred Hoyle state about the Big Bang? He says the following, that the universe, as a result of this model, was shrunk down to nothing at all. So the Big Bang model rather, requires that something was created out of nothing. Now let's see what Anthony Kenny, professor of Oxford University, says. A proponent of the Big Bang theory, at least if he is an atheist, must believe that the universe came out of nothing and by nothing. But brothers and sisters and friends, out of nothing, nothing comes. And even atheists and the famous philosopher like David Hume, he says, I never asserted the absurd proposition as that anything might arise without a cause. And this resonates in the following exclamation and statement from the eminent physicist Sir Arthur Eddington. He also states, the beginning seems to present insuperable difficulties unless we agree to look on it as frankly supernatural. So we can summarize my argument as follows. Premise number one, whatever begins to exist has a cause. Premise number two, the universe began to exist, and the following conclusion follows logically, therefore the universe has a cause. And we've discussed the nature of this cause, that it must have a personal will, it must have the freedom to choose, therefore indicates a being. Now, let me deal with some counter-arguments. I want to leave this for the Q&A. However, let me deal with some of them now so I can start stirring up some emotion. The first counter-argument is, 1 minute, Mr. Hamza Tzortzis. Things do begin to exist without a cause. Oh, is that right, Mr. Atheist? Mr. Atheist replies, yes. Why is that, I say? And Mr. Atheist says, well, in the subatomic vacuum, there's some particles that jump out of nowhere and living causes out of nothing. However, this is not really the case. Because if we read, for example, John Barrow's and Frank Tipler's book, The Anthropic Cosmological Principle, we understand that in reality, the subatomic vacuum is a sea of fluctuating energies that facilitated the cause of these particles. Hence, it does not negate our original argument. And we could discuss this further in the Q&A. And also, atheists reply, well, there is an infinite. Infinite does exist in the real world. And they give me this typical Zeno's paradox. Zeno was a Greek guy, by the way. We always mess ourselves up. The Greeks do a huge historical shooting in the foot, by the way. And we have a historical complex as well. I don't know, who's Greek in the room? Anyone Greek? You're not Greek, man. How can you be Greek? Well, how can I be Greek? I look Pakistani. Okay. Basically, what they say is this. I want to walk towards my brother Adam, and I take a step. So I take that step. Now my next step, though, has to be half of my previous step. So I do half of that. And then my next step has to be half of the half of the half. And then half of the half of the half, then half of the half of the half. Sounds like an MC, doesn't it? Yeah? I'm from Hackney in London. We have quite a lot of MCs in Hackney. So, coming back to my point. So they're saying you could split this distance an infinite amount of times by keep on halving the distance that you are traversing, that you are walking. However, these atheists cannot differentiate between the potential infinite and the actual infinite. I had this debate with Dr. Barber once, and one of the guys from the National Secular Society screamed when I was having the debate, which was quite rude, and he said, "What about calculus?" Yeah? You know, because you have concept of the infinity, etc. So I like to make this point now that there is a difference between the actual infinite and the potential infinite. Why do I say that? Because although you could split the distance between me and Adam into infinite parts, I can still walk the actual distance. Although it can be potentially split into infinite parts. So there's a difference between the potential infinite and the actual infinite. And obviously, if we look at Kazner and Newman in the publication Mathematics and Imagination, they say the infinite certainly does not exist in the same sense that we say the fish in the sea. Existence in a mathematical sense is wholly different from the existence of objects in the physical world. And the most famous so-called counter-argument, then who caused God? However, the argument is about things that begin to exist have a cause, and not whatever exists has a cause. There's a difference in argumentation, but hopefully, thank you, but hopefully, he could at least show a sign. Yeah. But hopefully, we could discuss this even further in the Q&A. So the argument as a conclusion is as follows. There is a sole cause for the universe, and we can see this by the absurdity of the infinite. And this cause is beyond time because it created time. And this cause is personal, because how can a timeless entity bring this universe into existence if it was just mechanical and just a set of pre-existing conditions? So, in order for the humanists to refute my claims, they have to do two things. Firstly, that there can be an infinite set of past events. That is, infinity is a reality and has a basis in the real world. And two, they must try and find out that things which begin to exist have no cause. If they could establish to give me evidences for these points, we'll have a successful debate. I'd like to end now, which is something quite emotional, and I'd like to set the context emotionally at the end. Because if today's debate is just an academic, abstract debate, then please all go home. Because ideas must be real for us. They must really affect something in Islam which is called our-nafsiyah, our disposition. If it doesn't do that, then discard the papers and discard the intellectual gymnastics. Because we must see it in the following way. Take the concept of a star. For us, we believe a star is truth. It's a phenomenon, it's real. Stars exist. However, it's a very cold concept for people like us in the West. It exists, so what? We shouldn't be like that. We should be like the Bedouin Arab. That when he believes in the star, it exists, it's real. It has a huge impact because it guides him in the desert. And this is how ideas should be. They should affect us profoundly so we can move on positively. If not, we must discard that discourse and move to another set of argumentation that will affect us and humanity more positively. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I pray to God, that anything that I have said that has been wrong, inaccurate, has come from shaitan and my nafs, my ego. Anything that is positive, that's true, that's accurate, has unquestionably come from Islam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.